Hi everyone, this is your host Jyoti. Thank you for watching this video and please like, subscribe and share this video. This video in series of this video, particularly in this video, we are going to talk about why would somebody choose to do PhD at Denmark. And today we have with us is Adam. Hi Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Adam is actually right now is a postdoc at DTU, and a few years back he came all the way from US to do his PhD at DTU, Technical University Denmark. And I'm very thankful that he agreed to do this small interaction with me in a questionnaire interview style, where he will be sharing his experience. And yeah, so let's start, Adam.
Yep, sure.
um, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us more about yourself to our viewers. Where are you from, and what is your background?
Sure. So like you mentioned, I've been a postdoc now for the past year
Mhm.
at DTU, and before that, I actually spent 3 years working on my PhD. That was in the Department of Chemical Engineering, and I mean, although I've been formerly a chemical engineer, I would say my background is a little bit more geared towards material science because before doing my PhD, I was doing that for my up to my master's and also at the job I worked at. So before coming to D2, I was employed for 3.5 years in the US in a small nanotech firm.
Mm-hmm.
Working on different types of materials with composites, and with self-healing materials, usually for defense or NASA applications. So it was an interesting time, but I felt like I wanted to move on, so that's why I
Mm-hmm.
went and did a PhD.
That's cool. So, like you said, you did your master in US, and everybody know there are some great universities in US. Then this is such a big decision for somebody to move from one country to another country to do PhD. So, what is the difference you have found between US system and a Danish system, education system, and why did you apply in Denmark? Can you share your views?
Sure. So it's kind of like two different things because one is why I applied for Denmark, and the second is sort of talking about how I can compare the Danish education system with the US one.
Mm-hmm.
And for the reasons I chose Denmark is because I was looking for a change of environment. So coming from the US, it's usually favorable if you switch schools between your degrees. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of just branching out of that and going a little bit maybe more outside of that because I decided to go to a country outside of the US to do my PhD. But the reason I chose it is because I really like the opportunity here. The project that was advertised was the one that was really interesting to me, and so I would just say if you find an advertisement for a PhD position that sounds interesting to you, apply for it because it's try to do something that you'll enjoy because you're in it for a long stretch, so it might as well be a project that you do like. And then for comparing the different educational systems, I would say in Denmark, the thing that really I've been enjoying is that here their structure is a bit more horizontal. So instead of just expecting a supervisor to sort of guide you towards where you need to be, you should also actually just be taking your own initiative, being your own boss almost, because you do have a lot more freedom in what you can do in terms of planning your PhD. You're allowed to structure it as you like. So I guess one of the really strong suits here is just the fact that their supervision is a little bit more horizontal rather than vertical.
That's good. So, once you found out this position, what was the admission procedure? Was it what kind of steps were involved, and how long was the process? How much time did it took for you to from application to get selected?
Yeah. So when I applied, it was a position that I found originally on Indeed.com.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I understand, they advertised to various job portals. So Indeed, LinkedIn, I don't know what other ones, but you can also check the university pages because they have their own job portals. But
Mm-hmm.
Indeed was the one that I used to find it. And from there, I think it took maybe about a month or two before I was invited for a phone interview. So they did it through Skype with me. They liked how that interview went, so they then invited me for an in-person interview. So about maybe a week or two after that, it was pretty quickly after that one that I went over to Denmark. I had the in-person interview. And then after that, I think it also was about a couple of weeks where they responded saying that I can have the position. So in all, maybe it took 2 or 3 months to get this process, at least to get my project assigned. And then I was supposed to start after that. So it still took about
Mm-hmm.
2 months until I was able to start my PhD.
Okay. So you mentioned that your background is in material science, and but this PhD is you into chemical engineering. So when you applied and you prepare your application, what was the key? How did you prepare your SOP, and what kind of? Can you take us? What are the important elements of your application, if you remember?
Yeah, sure. My like cover letter basically is structured pretty similar for when I was also applying for jobs. I
Mm-hmm.
just tweak it a little bit. So since this is for a PhD position, I made it a little bit more focused. I spent a little bit more time about my academic background. So talking about the research projects I was involved in. Even when I was working at the company, I tried to focus on how the research was there. And so basically, what I started out with is a paragraph perhaps about my own background and my interest in this position. And then I move into a little bit more detail about what I did research wise in the next paragraph or two. So since I did some research in a company, I spent a short paragraph about that, and then I went also back into explaining what the research was for my master's, because I thought that would be relevant, and then just wrap it up with basically saying that why you think you're the best fit for this position, and then finish it off with a nice enthusiastic thanks.
Okay. And you had to submit some SOPs like a recommendation letter from your
Mhm.
professors.
Yes.
You,
So that also, I used the recommendation letters because I worked at the company with some of my supervisors from there. And then after that, I used my supervisors from from my master's. I think that was the strongest recommendation I had. So definitely ask your supervisor from your master's program because they can probably give you the best recommendation, especially because they've probably had experience writing them in the past. So they would know the best how to do those.
so all those potential candidates who are thinking to apply for PhD at Denmark or DTU, how do they stand out different than other candidates because they have a competition from within a students from DTU who have completed masters. So how what is your advice? Because you come as a external, you came all along from USA. So what are the things? What is your opinion? How do you differentiate yourself? And did you contact the supervisor of main supervisor of this project beforehand to get some help with your application?
Uh, in my case, I did not because I was sending quite a lot of applications at the time, so I didn't have a chance to really focus in
Mhm,
on this position in particular. But I think it would definitely help to, especially for DTU,
mhm,
to get email to the main supervisor of the project. Because when you see the job advertisement, there's usually a professor or two that's associated with that project. I
mhm,
would definitely recommend emailing that person because you could find out easily whether they have someone in mind already for the position
mhm,
or not. This is important because at DTU, some of the positions they offer, they already have someone in mind, but because of their formalities, they have to still advertise the position. So
mhm,
even though they may not be looking for someone, they will still have to post it because that's a requirement for their positions. But that's why I definitely recommend contacting the names of get in touch with the professors involved
mhm.
so that you know for sure this position is available or not. That would really save you a lot of effort.
Okay, so you mentioned there were three interviews. or if I'm not wrong, one was your Skype interview, and then you had another interview when we
Yeah, two
few
interviews.
interviews. So when you came to Denmark, there was
Hmm.
another. So when did you know that you are selected for this position?
It was about a week or two after that because I guess they did some internal assessment,
Mm-hmm.
and then they gave me an email saying that mine was the one that was the
Okay.
most attractive, and
Okay.
so that's where I went along and ended up in DTU.
And like, and now you have finished your PhD. So how did you like the research environment at DTU? Do you think it is as per as international universities and top renowned university? Do you find something where DTU is ahead of everybody else? And if there's something still DTU should work on, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the research facilities, I mean, they are very good research facilities, but they might not be the world's top facilities. So what they usually do is they do include part of your education some external stay, and I would definitely use that opportunity to make use of some top quality facilities, whatever you think might be necessary for your project.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you want to do some synchrotron experiments, then you would need to go to some other school to do those.
Mm-hmm.
But because of their external stays, they are pushing for that. It would be a great opportunity to go do it. And since we're in Denmark, we have access to some pretty local ones because there's opportunities in either Germany or Sweden for that. So yeah, definitely make use of your external stays to get any sort of external access where necessary, because what D2 has is excellent already, but anytime you might need some additional things done that are outside the scope of Denmark, then yeah, you need to spend some time outside.
Okay. And one of the thing Danish system also is that you have to finish your PhD in 3 years, which is quite unlikely compared to rest of the world where PhD can last longer, up to 6 years. So 4 to 6 years. So how did you compress your research in 3 years? What are the things you actually? How did you prioritize your research work while you
Yeah.
were? Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's comes a little bit tight because you have to also include your courses that you have to take care of, and then on top of that, some teaching requirements.
Mhm.
And so managing that can be a little bit difficult. So definitely it helps to prioritize some like key things that you want to accomplish. In my case, I had basically three different research tracks that I had in mind because I wanted to start with doing some characterization using some particular technique, and then potentially up to two others. But the third one was one that required this synchrotron, for example.
Okay.
And in the scope of my project, about a year into my project, I realized that in order to do all the things I want, which includes also some modeling, I probably wanted to spend more time on the modeling part rather than trying to make sure I can wrap up with these more highly detailed experiments. So realizing what might be within your scope early on helps so that you don't end up wasting time or realizing that you can't do things. So try to focus on the things that would be really impactful for your project. So do the research that can give you the results that you're really looking for. And then if you need to do some modeling, then also make sure you reserve some time for that because sometimes the models don't go well and you might have to start from scratch half a year through. So you keep that also in mind when you're doing your project because I mean I can't speak for everyone when
Yeah.
it comes to planning a research project, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of things you need to keep in mind.
And another thing which distinguish Denmark from rest of the world is the grading system. And during the application, you have to convert your grades into a Danish grading system.
Yes.
So a lot of people have kind of confused when they, try to fix that thing. Can you share your experience and how did you overcome that problem?
Yeah, that was very confusing, especially also for me because coming from a grading system which goes from A through F, or even from like percentile scores and converting it to the 7 point system,
Mhm.
which I mean it's called a 7 point systems, but it goes from a range from 12 to a negative number.
Mhm.
And so what I did when I was first joining D2, at least for the application process,
Mhm.
on their website they do have some file that lets you convert your grades. So you do have access to that, but just for a rough idea of how to convert, when you start from their 12th grade, I would say that's approximately an A, and then when you drop down to a 10, that's approximately a B. I think they even say it's an A plus to a B plus, but you get the idea. And then for each step down, you can say it's another letter grade down. So you can basically equate it roughly like that.
Okay. So, so when you came to DTU, how was the environment? Whether you were feeling, whether language was a barrier, or was it easy for you to communicate? Because Danish language is something is very quite known that it's not easy to learn language for a lot of people. And when you came all over from US to Denmark, what was how's the environment at DTU? Can you share your experience?
So D2 is within the greater Copenhagen area, and I find that most people in the greater Copenhagen area do speak English. I mean, greater than 90% of the people that I've come across are able to communicate well. So communicating English specifically is not really an issue. Learning Danish, of course, is advantageous, especially if you're thinking of maybe staying after your PhD to do something. So in terms of having future prospects to remain in Denmark, you definitely want to start learning because you'll find that you'll be excluded from lunches, for example, because people like to communicate in their native tongue. And so if you want to stay in their social circles, you definitely have to pick up some Danish. Of course, they won't exclude you from conversations. It's just that the conversations will tend to be in Danish among
Mm-hmm.
close colleagues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if for having a PhD, if you just want to do a PhD, just having English is definitely plenty. But yeah, if you want to stay longer.
And I think one of the advantage of DTU is that it's in a city, and Copenhagen is kind of like one of the top cities in the world. So there's a lot of activities are happening every day in Copenhagen. So people can always find opportunity to socialize outside their academic, and they can attend many activities. So that is one of the benefit is the location
Hmm.
of university. That is one of the advantage, and I think a
Yes.
lot of people should be considering that also when they choose university around the world, location of the university.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Adam, one of my last question is that now you have completed your PhD, and you have also got your postdoc. What time in your PhD you started thinking about your career after PhD, and how did you find postdoc position? What is the steps?
Hmm. So basically, I was starting to look into my career prospects in the last year because you can see that the time is ticking and need to consider the future. When I was getting into that time period, I was actually looking in positions. At the time, I was looking outside of Denmark. I wasn't specifically looking within Denmark, but towards the end of my PhD, I was offered a postdoc, and this happens as long as you have some, I don't know, a pretty good network within Denmark, because then you have opportunities from people you know. And that's what happened to me. Is during my time here, I developed contact with another professor within the department
Mhm.
because I did a course for him as a teaching assistant. And because he knew what my skill set was, he offered me this postdoc position. So definitely during your time here, try to build up your network. So be in touch with professors in the department because they might give you an offer for a postdoc if they know what you're capable of.
Okay. And in our last closing remarks, what do you like to say to the people who either want to apply for PhD first, or who have finished, who are in a PhD right now doing, but they are looking for a career ahead, because you actually qualify to share your views in both aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of looking for a PhD, I definitely recommend people to try to find a position that they think is really interesting to them because like I find that PhD is something you should love. And so looking for a project that you think you would like really have an enjoyable time with, although I can't say for like you'll enjoy every moment of a PhD, it should still be something that in your heart you want to stick with. And then uh, I guess beyond that, for what you want to do afterwards, I mean, it depends on the person because some people want to stay in academia, some want to go in industry. Of course, I'm not going to ignore the fact that only about 1 in 10 people can find academic positions after they finish. I mean, getting a postdoc is not so difficult relative to getting then, a full-time faculty position. So landing that is not going to be an easy thing to do. But still, if it's something you really want to do, like as long as you're focused on that goal, something should come up. And I mean, don't be afraid to look outside if things aren't looking well. I mean, industry is always a great place to also do research because there's plenty of R&D groups in many companies. So you can still do the fun parts of a PhD as your future position. So there's nothing lacking in going to do work in an industry either.
And I like to add just last thing. There is also a lot of good support system available within a university where you can go for career counseling, like a CV building and all. Also in Copenhagen, there are a lot of programs where you can seek help, like IDA. There is a union where they organizes a lot of events, also. So there is a lot of opportunity which you can use to actually find your own path.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Adam, thank you so much for
Yeah,
this interview. I
it's been
think
a
a lot of
pleasure.
people will, thank you so much once again. And I think a lot of people will find this information you share very useful.
I hope so.
So, yeah. So, thanks for your time.
Yeah,
And
and thanks
I
for
think
having me again.